So our last kind of formal question is whether you have any predictions for what will be prioritised at COP26.
Yes, my waffly answer is I don't honestly know, and that is in part because I haven't yet received any strong signals or any tangible signals from the UK government hosting this. I do know that on a technical level, the issues that will be prioritized are first, ramping up the pledges. This is one of the main goals of COP26 is to take the Paris national pledges or NDCs and ensure that they have been ramped up, increased, made more ambitious, and that's one of the key tests of this COP, whether it can reveal that states have been able to do that. But the action of doing that won't take place in COP. The action of getting those pledges, that all needs to take place beforehand, and that's why, by the way, pressure from campaigners needs to be now. It can't wait till we're in Glasgow. It needs to come now, because this is when those pledges are being formulated and announced or not. And so far, we had a report last December of how these national pledges are going so far, and it's just abysmal, the progress that's being made. So it's between now and Glasgow where we really need to see a major push. An announcement of those and hopefully a celebration of those would be one priority. The second set of priorities is around finance, much trickier, around carbon pricing and around finance. One of the technical issues that needs to be resolved at the COP is to kind of close some of the loopholes that the Paris Agreement left open when it comes to what are the rules on carbon pricing, and what can countries count as a carbon allowance, and what can they double count as meeting those. So there's several different loopholes that need to be closed on that, and that's been a sticking point. They weren't able to achieve that in the last COP in Madrid. But even trickier, in my view, it should be a priority, and I wonder if it will be, but and that's the climate finance. That gets back to this issue of how do we support the least developed countries? How can we ensure that they can meet their own targets and have the resources as well as the political will and support to do that? So Paris agreed a nice honking green climate fund, 100 billion to help LDCs, less developed countries, achieve that. And that is nowhere near being delivered yet. So there's lots that still needs to be done. One positive note in this regard is that with the US back in the Paris Agreement, we do have an administration who has promised explicitly to reinstate the funding that the Trump administration pulled out. Trump, when he pulled the US out of the Paris Agreement, he also stopped funding for the Green Climate Fund, and that will be reinstated. That's important, not just because it's a chunk of money, but also it's the signal it sends is, look, we're taking this seriously, and so should you, the other major economies, and let's get that going. But that should be a priority, and we'll see if it is. But these are all. But in terms of what might the more visionary priority be, this is what I haven't been able to discern yet, beyond some very waffly, really, if I can say that, priorities of making sure that everyone's on board to have the most ambitious reduction in carbon emissions ever seen in the world before, and making sure no one's left behind. So you need those broad aspirations, but you also need a something that's a bit more substantive. That would be a priority, or some takeaway, some goals. So I would like to see something like a global agreement, not just to reduce carbon emissions. Of course, we want to do that. But could there be, a global agreement to phase out coal by a certain point, or to phase out by X year entirely the use of the internal combustion engine, or to stop funding of major polluters? This might seem unrealistic, but I think when we're talking about climate change in the COP, we have to imagine a radically different future, right? So I would like a vision, not that Boris Johnson and Alex Sharma have asked me, but I would like to see some radical vision that comes out of that, because what seems radical today could be achieved tomorrow. So that's what I'm hoping.
If only Boris Johnson was listening to you.
Okay, send him the interview, because I'm sure this is just what he's waiting for.